Well, guys, this is the bonus entry in fantasy movie month here in Winter Wolf's Den. King Z and I will be doing Legend. We're going to do it next. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Winter Wolf's Den. Winter Wolf in the A-hole seat, King Z in the B-hole seat over there. We're going to do Legend tonight for you guys. It was a recommendation brought to us by one of our dedicated and loyal fans of the channel. And I said, you know what? She's had a rough month. She's been sick a couple times. Let's humor her and take care of Legend. King Z, how you doing, buddy?
Doing all right here. Ready to review a classic from the 80s.
Nice. Dude, hit me with that improv meta you were talking about a minute ago.
All right, so we're talking about the movie Legend that was released in 1985 with a runtime of 1 hour and 34 minutes. It was directed by the one, the only Ridley Scott. If that name sounds familiar, that's because he has a movie in theaters right now called Napoleon. He's also known for the Alien series, the new Alien series with the Prometheus, and don't remember the names of the other ones.
Covenant, and nobody cared because it was terrible.
So yeah. Now the writer, William, oh boy, Hordsberg.
Yeah, it's close. It's good. Good.
Has 4 writing credits to his name, this being one of them. The other one that of note is Angel Heart, which is a voodoo movie that was also released in the 80s. And of course, it stars the one, the only, the summer blockbuster king himself, Tom Cruise, Mia Sara, and the iconic Tim Curry.
Dude, let's be honest, dude, this is his movie to lose. It's all about Tim Curry in this movie for like the 12 minutes that he's on screen, because when you break it down, it really is about 12 minutes of screen time. Everybody else is just living in his world in this movie for me. Dude, can I just add a little bit to the meta, because it kind of ties into some of the not the behind the scenes stuff, but just kind of the making of the movie. The guy that co-wrote the script with Ridley Scott is actually a fairly accomplished novelist, as I understand it. And that's why Ridley Scott approached him after he was coming off working on The Duelist. He kind of got the inspiration he wanted to do a fairy tale movie. So he looked around who was hot at the time, who had some cachet writing those kind of like, not necessarily grimdark, but darker takes on like grim fairy tales specifically. And that's the guy that he picked. So the guy had some pedigree writing in the genre. And I think it probably shows a little bit just kind of some of the imagery and story beats that they captured. But you mind if I throw down the synopsis really quick? Because I think this is a quick one.
I just got one more
point to
hit. So the budget for this movie was $25 million, and it brought in $23.5 million.
And again, I think we've talked about this before, especially during Fantasy Movie Month and with some of the horror movies we do. A lot of these things are not commercial successes at first, but then they leg out over time. And I think Legend, kind of like the quickest, easiest comparison I think I can make is Willow. Willow a little bit more commercially successful, but entered into cult classic status years later. You know what I mean? This is still a movie people talk about.
Yeah, it wasn't. A lot of fantasy movies aren't really big at box office.
Right.
Back then, it was the rentals and the HBOs that where it really did make its mark and its money. Willow's one of them. Like, it really had a cult following after it came out on DVD, and so did this one once it came out on VHS. Sorry, they didn't have DVDs back then. VHS.
Not even close.
When it came out in VHS, it had a huge following. Same with this movie. When it came out on VHS, had a huge following.
True. So, guys, the synopsis for this is another fairly straightforward entry in the fantasy genre. It's not a complicated story. There's a big bad dark lord, darkness, everybody, die, who wants to snuff all the light and magic out of the world. To do so, he needs to kill or capture the last 2 unicorns.
The last unicorn dies.
Unicorn. Old French, unicorn.
And dehorn them, use them in some kind of ritual and this and that. There is a young hero who inadvertently kicks off the catastrophe with some unintended consequences when his girlfriend gets all out of line and does some stupid shit she shouldn't do. And then he spends the rest of the movie wandering from points A to B to C to D, to get there to rescue her before the Dark Lord can complete the ritual with the unicorn horn. It's kind of your average Dungeons and Dragons amateur affair. Like, this is like kind of a beginner campaign kind of story, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not very complicated at all. Let's get your first impressions. Let's get you go first. Give me some first impressions.
All right, so going into this, I knew it was a classic. I also knew that a lot of the stuff would be dated because it, like I said, released in 1985. But watching it, it still has an enjoyable factor to it. Like, you didn't realize how much work went into this when you get to look at some of these characters and how they're costumed up. Like, how much work went into the makeup and the costuming and the back then that was the special effects as well that went into this movie to bring out this type of magic in a 1985 setting where CGI was not a thing. Computer graphics were just getting started.
Oh yeah.
And I think they pulled off a really good, like, using different lighting, the prosthetics that they used, and then the camera work, and then with the coloring, it really worked well.
Good take. So if you're saying it overwhelmingly holds up 40 years later is what you're saying, give or take.
Yeah, I mean, of course it's going to look dated and, like, some of the
but,
dialogue
conventions
is
and
pretty
story
cheesy.
things. Yeah.
But overall, I mean, you can completely enjoy a movie even though you know it's dated because of how groundbreaking it was at its time when it was released.
Sure. Well, I got bad news for you. I disagree completely. Unfortunately. I was super disappointed in the rewatch, which is weird because I feel like I just watched this a few years ago and did not feel that same way. Dude, I was really bored during the middle of this, and I think that's testimony to maybe it's because we just rewatched a lot of the Lord of the Rings stuff where there's always something important going on that's moving story forward in a creative, meaningful way. I think there's a lull in the middle of this movie where literally I don't know what happens because I don't care. Like, I've forgotten the middle 30 minutes of this movie after the stuff with the unicorn happens and before they get to Darkness's base. Like, they just, like, what do? They get him a suit of armor and a sword that he loses. He meets the Will-O-Wisp that's actually a fairy that wants our identity protected so nobody knows her secret, and then, like, what do? You know what I mean? It feels hollow, which is weird because the first half of watching it, though, those first 10 minutes are glorious. We get the intro to Darkness and the amazing prosthetic work that they had to paste all over Tim Curry, like 5 hours of work a day to get him ready for that. All the really cool ethereal lighting, like set in that summer glade where there's just like flower petals and like dust and all kinds of just pollen on the air. It made it look magic, almost in the good ways that when we were talking about the Lord of the Rings, like when they finally get to Rivendell and then where the Wood Elves are. Like, there's a quality about this movie that makes it feel surreal and magical, and that's all dope as fuck. I liked all of that. You know, when we get the intro to Tom Cruise's character, and he's kind of like the boy that lives in the wild kind of thing. Also very cool. We get the intro to Darkness, also very cool. But maybe it's just that there's not enough to it. I don't know. Everything is paper thin here now, it feels like to me, in a way that Willow, or maybe a better example might be The Neverending Story. That still holds up exceptionally well for me on a story level. You know, I think maybe Legend is like ranked 3 out of those 3 films. What do you think about that as a sidebar?
I believe that Legend was the answer to Ladyhawke, which was a Matthew Broderick fantasy that came out around the same time. Like, you didn't see in, like, movies that there's a lot of parody. So, I mean, let's take Deep Impact and Armageddon. Like, when you have one, like, type of movie, another movie's going to be coming out exactly around the same time with the
blockbusters do that
same
a lot.
story.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe happened with Legend, is that it was trying to ride those coattails. And one of the things you do notice, and like you said, it was a novel writer that he brought in to do the writing, and you can definitely tell because he wrote it like a novel and not like a movie, because some of the dialogue was very lacking. Tried to be too
it seems
poetic.
simple. Right, flowery.
It was trying to be simple but very flowery, but it was like change of emotions were like
Yeah.
snap of the fingers. So I can understand why, watching it now after we have such movies like Lord of the Rings, Dungeons and Dragons, the new one, Honor Among
Yeah.
Thieves.
Yeah, none of those sci-fi movie pictures from the early 2000s, they were all bad. I'm sorry, Jason Statham. The movie was terrible. Sorry, not sorry.
So yeah, so I think that is what glued to your mind. But if you could put your mind back in 1985 and watch this movie, it'd be a little bit different. And that was the point that I was making.
Dude, and I dig that, and that's not usually something that I have a problem with, because when we talk about those movies from back in the day, or even if we're just going back 20 years like the Lord of the Rings stuff, but there are other movies like The Neverending Story or something like The Goonies or Flight of the Navigator, and these are all like profile Disney and related studio films that all came out around that same time. I don't have a problem with doing that for those, but I think because I think what's lacking in this movie is an interesting central character that isn't the villain's look. Tom's Jack character here is not all that compelling in any kind. He's not an everyman. He's not a paladin. He has no inherent magical powers that he uses. He's not a superhero. He's just a dude that lives in the woods and happens to like the hot brunette. And Mia Sara, one of the hottest women on the planet, for many a decade while she was, a prominent actress. She looks great here in the role as Lily, without a doubt. But she's not too compelling as a character. I think the Robin Wright character from Princess Bride is better at what this character is supposed to be in Legend, because that's kind of a similar character. It's a chick that kind of she's wealthy, she's royalty, she's a station above the love interest. You know what I mean? She doesn't understand how serious the world is until she kind of kicks off the bad thing happens here. So she's not too compelling. And then, like you said about emotion switching, when we get to that point down at the end of the movie where it looks like she might be on like the corruption arc and maybe going through with it, like she takes that turn from the virgin in the white dress trope to the dark bitch in the dark dress thing, and then flips it. You know what I mean? It all seems very uneven now, and I don't remember it being like that.
Well, it was also like the example I had of the flash of emotion was Gump, when we first introduced to Gump, and he was like all upset that he took her to see the unicorns, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, for love, he's like, let's drink.
Dude, exactly. There was a little too much weird stuff like that, and I think that I was reading some behind the scenes stuff. I know you probably read a little bit in it, so this isn't news to you, but they had gone through something like 15 rewrites of the script here. The studios got involved because the original final script that they handed in, that they were accepting before they had studios, like the execs get to give their notes and everything, like they had a much darker tale that they were going to tell that involved, a particular scene that the studio execs were like, absolutely not, that involved Lily actually hooking up with Darkness, which would have skewed this way out of a kid's entry-level dark fantasy fairy tale, I guess, into something really weird, but they were like, nah, dog, we're not doing that. He's got the two big horns on his head and that's all he gets to have, if you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like that's all they were doing with that. So they had their cuts and their reshoots. And I was also reading that there's like 3 or 4 different endings to this movie. And like, I feel like the American ending is the one you just watched on Amazon Prime, where the credits take place and then Darkness's likeness is featured laughing laughing in a fadeaway into the credits, like I'm not really gone. Like, well, that's kind of a kick in the nuts after this movie. But like the Euro version doesn't have that. It's just that everybody does the wave at the camera 80s goodbye thing. I'm like, oh, that seems like it would have been more befitting of this kind of movie. So I'm like, I don't know, there's just a lot of weird cues like that make me not enjoy this as much looking back on it. Weird.
And like I said, like if you have to like put yourself in 1985, you have to think that they're trying to ride the coattails of stuff like Nighthawk or Lady Hawk,
yeah,
and Willow and stuff like that,
by
getting someone like Tom Cruise, who's coming off back-to-back successes with all the right moves and risky business.
Yep.
You have Mia Sara from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yep.
And I mean, Tim Curry's Tim Curry, no matter what movie he's in. He's just that type of presence. I think this was right before he did Clue as well, which was one of the big hits.
Yeah, no, he was the biggest star of the 3, I would say. by the time this came out, because this wasn't Mia Sara's first movie, right? Because Ferris Bueller came out, I think, maybe 2 years before Legend. I think Ferris Bueller might have been 83 or 84. I don't recall, but he definitely
86. It came the year after.
Oh, okay. Then I'm shocked. I think maybe it was made before and then released after. I'm not sure. But anyways, she's very much so at the beginning of her career at that point. Tom Cruise, like you said, is on his way up for certain, coming off of the successes he had. But I think nobody comes away from this movie thinking that, like I said in the intro, that this was anybody other than Tim Curry's movie as Darkness. The look is iconic. When you mention Legend, you guys saw it in the thumbnail. Like, this is the image everybody remembers. The giant red devil with the giant black horns.
Yep.
You know, when I was telling my brother this was the next thing we were doing a little earlier, he goes, "Was that the one with the dude that was all red and scared the crap out of me when I was 5?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's that one. It's that one. You've been warned. Yeah, that's Darkness. Darkness, everybody." Yeah, I'll cut that clip and put that in there. It was absolutely his movie, and like what they put that man through to get him in the chair, to get the makeup onto it, what they put him through to get it off, dude. I was reading that it required a special solvent bath to dissolve some of the crap that was holding it all together. And at one point during shooting, he was in such a rush to get it off, he didn't sit in it long enough, and he actually like tore skin trying to rip some of this shit off of his head. And like, I could see that because that stuff weighed like 30 pounds or whatever it weighed. They had to go through a couple of versions to lighten it because it was the prosthetic. If you guys seen the movie, the giant horns are all angled outward. They're not angled up like a crown.
Yeah, they're
flared forward, right? And they're big.
Yeah,
they're big. It's not like a unicorn horn.
They stick out like almost like 2 feet from his head.
It's like it's like arm's length of like a normal human being. How far out they go, for sure. Like not comfortable at all. And everybody else is over here dancing around in leotards and evening gowns and shit. You know?
So this was Tom Cruise's 7th movie at the time.
Yeah. Yep. I could see
like
that.
I said, coming off the success of All the Right Moves and Risky Business, both released in 1983.
And he's heading into Top Gun at this point, you know what I mean? Like right out, shortly thereafter this, like Top Gun's coming out in I think like 86 or 88. Like he's on his way.
And it wasn't Top Gun like directed by Ridley Scott's brother?
Ridley Scott. Tony Scott.
Mm-hmm.
You got it.
So, I mean, this is probably what got him the Top Gun role to begin with because of the hookup. Like, hey, I had a great time working with him. He can fit into this role because, I mean, he's in his mid-20s at this point.
Yep. So, obviously, it had an impact on his career. I don't ever hear him. I think it's far enough out of the lexicon now that people don't really ask him about, you know, looking back on it. Like, you know, maybe when he retires someday, somebody will ask him that question. You know, your experience working on Legend and whatnot. But like, dude, pick your favorite character out of the movie and let's talk some character work here. Maybe I can change your mind and drag your score down a little bit and not leave you in nostalgia realm.
I mean, if we're leaving out the big three, leave the big three out.
Yeah.
I would have to go with the dwarf-ish thing that they left behind to protect the unicorn.
Was that Brown Tom or was that the other one whose name I can't remember now? Tum Tum? Was it Tum Tum and Brown Tom? Yeah, Tum Tum and Brown Tom. Yeah. One of them played by Billy Barty, who was Gwildor in the Masters of the Universe live action movie. Yeah.
I thought Billy Barty was Screwball.
Billy Barty might have been Screwball. I was just saying one of them shorties was Billy Barty because the voice is, you know, obviously, you know, Billy Barty's. Tell him, go on your pick then.
He was the one defending the unicorn because the whole purpose was to kill the unicorn and take the horn. They killed the male, but they left the female at the beginning. And then so he's there and he has his little campfire and he has like a pot and he's blocking all their arrows with the pot. And I just like his back and forth with them as he's doing it. Like, and then he takes an arrow to the head, but it only breaks the bottle, but he plays dead anyways.
The bottle under his hat. Yeah. It was pretty good. Pretty slick. No, it was a fun little character. It reminded me kind of, use the Willow reference. He kind of reminded me of the brownies that they pick up along the way. Like the miniature of most miniatures in Willow. He had some of the comic relief. Like if we're leaving the big three out, I think my favorite character out of the bunch was Blix. I really like the lead goblin, like the lead villain that actually fires the blow dart that does the poisoning. He had a very the character is voiced by a human female. I don't know why I had to specify that.
Alice Playton,
who also voiced Gump, because they replaced the original actor's voice because it was too heavily accented in German. So what
Wow.
you hear is dubbed over. It's actually that actor. It's Alice Clayton's voice stepping in as Gump. But Blix has this rhyming scheme that they do, which is very cool. It's very fairy tale poetic, where it's like kind of like a 1, 2, 3 rhyming thing from most of the dialogue, which was kind of cool. So I was kind of with that. That was entertaining. That kind of stuff I like in my cheesy fantasy stuff. But the rest of it just felt kind of, I don't know, like what happened in the middle of this movie? Like when after the unicorn horn is taken, we get the winter time freeze takes over. Jack gets with Lily. He meets Gump. They're going on their way. He loses Lily. They're going on their way. Yeah. The bad guys are bringing the horn back to darkness. What happens in between? Like, what?
So
like I just don't remember anything.
You have him finding the cave where he got the armor and the sword.
And they just walked into there. No challenge. No nothing. No door. No password. No riddle. No magical creature.
He was like, "We're gonna need weapons." Like, what do I know of weapons?
Which was cool.
Like, you'll have to learn.
Cool. Yep. Which was cool. But then nothing.
Then Gump couldn't go with them, so this is where he finds the fairy that becomes or the Pitsy that becomes a fairy type thing.
Now let's put a pin in that real quick, because that's obviously the part where they ripped off The Empire Strikes Back and he had to go into the tree by himself and leave Yoda and the weapons outside. Don't think I didn't pick that up, guys. You cribbed that. But then like he goes inside and it's like going to Walmart. He's just like, oh, this mail seems to fit. I'll take that. Oh, swords on sale. I'll take that. And he just leaves. It was like he went through a Walmart and a self-checkout somewhere in like the hood or something. Like no one stopped him. No one checked the receipt. He's just like, no, I'm good.
And then Lily was on her own adventure where she found the human family that she met at the very beginning completely frozen, and that's where she meets the goblins.
Yep.
And then she meets up with the other unicorn, and then they run, and they both get captured and then taken to darkness. And darkness is also taken by her beauty, just like Jack the Green,
and the rest of the planet, right? And the rest of the human world.
Yeah.
Now a couple of pins in that statement again. So when Kingsley said that Lily met the human family from the beginning, what he meant to say was she met up with the human family she screwed over by being a jackass and causing an eternal darkness and ice storm to fall over the land, which froze them. And also left their baby frozen in the cradle. That was the most morbid thing I'd ever seen. They got frozen baby rocking in the cradle. And I'm like, damn, dude, the 80s were dark. I forgot about that. Thank God.
The 80s was very
dark. The 80s was no joke. Could you imagine getting that in a script today and getting that through 47 rounds of rewrites? The studio guys, the MPA, dude, they'd be like, nah. We're going to put that over there with Human Centipede if you think that's getting made. That's how that movie's getting made, dude.
Yeah. There's a lot of movies from the 80s that would never get remade.
Oh, dude. Most movies from the 80s wouldn't get made. And the other thing, just based on what you were saying, when Lily and the remaining unicorn are on the run, she actually has a pretty good dramatic moment as the human being where she kind of puts herself between the incoming goblins and the unicorns running away. Like, all right, you're going to have to go through me kind of thing. It was quick. She had no idea what was going on, but I at least liked the effort there. It was nice to see. Just wanted to point that out.
She does blame herself.
Right. She has awareness at that point. Yep.
Because they think it's because she touched the unicorn. It has nothing to do that they were tracking her to find the unicorn. Because if you pay it at the very beginning, the 3-minute scroll they have at the beginning to set the world.
Classic 80s.
It tells you that only the most purest people can actually, or the most moral people can actually find the unicorns. So they were tracking her, who knew, and then tracked her on the day that somehow Jack was going to take her to see the unicorns.
See, the more you start to peel it back, the more you're exposing the movie for the weaknesses that it has. Like number one,
I knew it had weaknesses.
This means Darkness already knew who this chick was. I already had an intrinsic and intimate knowledge of where she would be. That they could get Blix and his crew there. Right? How did he know? Why wasn't that a thing?
Well, he's Darkness.
Show me more. You have to show me more. Show me him looking at her in a magic mirror or some shit. Set that up so it makes sense when that happens. And of course everything they do with the unicorns is derived from like Arthurian legend with only the purest of the pure and this and that. So, I mean, they got that part right. I'll give them that. But it was nice that Lily took that emotional hit when she gained some insight and realized that had she not gotten that close, maybe Blix couldn't have shot it with the blow dart. I'm thinking like once she got within 40, 50 yards of this thing, Blix and his crew probably could have taken a shot, but they tried to tie that in as neatly as they could. So I didn't have any really major problem with that. That was okay. Her taking the responsibility for it, though, is I think where if they made Legend today, they're not making it that way. You know, they're going to go the other way with that. You all know what I'm talking about. But so elsewhere in the middle of this movie, Tom Cruise runs into a sea hag named like Molly Knucklebones or something when I looked it up on Wikipedia earlier, and charms her into dying, getting decapitated or whatever happened to her. I don't even remember. I was remembering the text description.
It was in the magical swamp that they were going through.
Yeah.
And had the hag, which that was straight puppeteering and
look good,
style.
creepy, very creepy. The facial expressions are very creepy.
Muppets can be really creepy.
Hell yeah. Dude, Dark Crystal, anybody? Show that to your contemporary 8-year-old in 2023. Book the therapy session ahead of time.
And then they find their way in, and they end up in prison. Like their
right,
back door is right into a prison.
This is what I'm saying,
so
dude.
wouldn't that be the escape tunnel for them in prison?
Yes! Yes! Dude, so they get into the prison. They run into a thing that used to be one of Darkness's boys, but like he demoted him to get cooked into a pie because he tried to take the horn for himself and run some shit, and Darkness banished him. Right. So Darkness banishes him down to the dungeon/kitchen, which sounds like toilet kitchen from like Rafi on the League, right? And all of a sudden, like with all the armor off, he still has like the one deformed arm. Like he got like one Gollum arm. Did you notice that? Yeah. Because he's like a dwarf that became corrupted because they all know his name. Like his name was Blunder, right? Yep. They all knew his name, and they're like, oh no, come with us. We're gonna bring you back. And like, right, but like in the beginning of the movie, he's all covered in like armor and shit, and you thought he was like Blix or Pox or one of the other goblins. He's like, no, just randomly. Well, what's his backstory? What's his deal? Like, give me some info there. That's really interesting. It's interesting though. Dude, it's interesting. I mean, for 90 minutes of a run, I didn't need it, but if they're just gonna spend time wandering and doing things and picking up items they need NPC style, they may as well just have a throwaway line that describes something. You know, just to flesh it out a little bit.
If you really look at it, the dialogue could all fit on maybe 10 pages.
Oh, dude, easy.
Like, and mostly just being visually stunning. A lot of cloud shots.
Yep.
A lot of just look how beautiful this is.
Dude, I said that at the beginning. I said when they're setting, when they especially when they hit with that that electro synth music from the 80s, which replaced, get this, I don't know if you saw this in the background. I never knew this. Did you know Jerry Goldsmith wrote the original score for this? Like legendary composer Jerry Goldsmith, who's done millions of movies you guys would recognize. The American studios like, this will play in Europe, but it won't work here. We can have some ladies electro synth crap in here that we can bring in the viewers. And I'm like, okay, I like both because I've listened to both. But so, well, yeah, when they're running the electro synth and they're doing all that stuff in the meadow at the beginning, and it looks like eternal summer. It's how I imagine anything this is my per video Dresden Files reference, how anything at the summer court would look. Like if they showed up, this is how Queen Titania would be running the court of summer in the Dresden Files. It's always middle of day. There's always some birds chirping. We got God rays coming through all the trees all the time and all that kind of imagery, flowers full bloom and stuff. It was all very, very cool. And then that reappears at the end when they're wrapping things up. What did you think running through at the end when they've kind of resolved everything with Darkness and Jack has to go back to find the ring that Lily randomly threw over her shoulder into the pond at the beginning of the movie?
She said
like 5 seconds after the unicorn thing.
All her suitors.
Yeah. But she did that 5 seconds after she got a unicorn murdered.
This ring. Yeah, she goes, she didn't know it got murdered because it just ran off.
But that's what I mean. It was almost, we talk about pacing, but it seems like this was almost too fast. Like we get all this disastrous shit happening. The clouds are dark and there's some thunder. Tom Cruise looks concerned, like, Goose just whacked his head on the canopy. And this chick's all like, giggle, take the ring off. Anybody that gets the ring can marry me. And I'm like,
well, they needed a inciting event that would separate the two of them. And that was it.
A fine event, but I think, again, it's when you mash the pedal all the way down and keep it all the way down, that connective stuff in the middle doesn't resonate the same way. Maybe it's just me, and it could be. But I was like, all right, so he defeats darkness, and then he's got to walk 900 miles back to the glade, jump off the fucking waterfall again, and I guess he just knew where the ring was. Just saying, it looked like a fairly sizable pond. Could have been anywhere. Bird might have picked it up. Beaver might have picked it up. Who knows?
That
it was there though.
It was about love. The love drove him to the location.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that did, yeah, but you know what we needed there? We needed the scene with Inigo Montoya holding the sword up in the glade, asking for his father's help to find the men in black in the pit of despair. This dude just walked over to a waterfall and was like, yeet, I'm going in.
Well, at least he found that ring and not the other ring in the river, which
fair.
is another movie.
Now, fair, that's a fan cut I'd like to see. If there's anybody out there that's working on a fan cut to do a mashup between Legend and Fellowship of the Ring, that'd be kind of dope. Like, he hits the waterfall, but like Smeagol's already down there. There's some kind of wrestling match. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe it's a video we gotta make. I think for me, this entire movie, it's a collection of fairy tale ideas, but it doesn't hold up to the scrutiny. If you're really into the genre, I think it's difficult. I won't say it's impossible, because obviously, you still enjoyed it, so it's not impossible. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. We see way worse stuff, routinely. But if you're familiar at all with the conventions and you don't find them novel anymore, it might be difficult to watch this for a first time. Like if you're a newer fantasy viewer, if you're going back and doing like a retro rewatch, I don't know if this holds up. I asked you before, you didn't answer the question earlier. If you had to rank Legend, Willow, and Neverending Story, how do you sort those three?
I'd have to put Willow at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be hard between Legend and Neverending Story, because there's a lot of errors in Neverending Story too, after I rewatched it when I was older as well.
I'll have to go back and give it a rewatch.
Put it on our list to review during our salute to fantasy movies.
I was wondering if he was going to do that.
So, yeah. I guess you'd put Neverending Story above Legend, but I think that one of the things was that this movie was pioneering a lot of the makeup and stuff we see in a lot of movies. I mean,
unbeatable.
Stranger Things with Vecna and stuff like that. Like that was all prosthetics as well. Like when you have that type of time and detail, like that whole red was painted on there, like hand painted on there. It was, I mean, it was great. The costume artist should have won the Academy Award for this. I don't know if they won a Saturn Award, which is another side note. I worked on a movie that won a Saturn Award, so that's pretty cool.
There you go.
First movie I ever worked on.
Got some game. It's got some hustle, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we bring him back week to week.
Yeah, Saturn Awards are for like top sci-fi movies. So, and they usually put sci-fi and fantasy together, and they were blended together, then they got pulled apart, and now as we get into the genre more, they're being pushed back together. So
cool. I don't think anybody could knock this movie for the aesthetic that it brought, for sure. I think maybe for me where it falters, like I've said a couple times, it's just in the middle and just how the story rolls. Any other points on Legend you were bringing?
A novelist wrote it. It looked the script and everything sounds like a novelist wrote it and not a screenwriter.
I could see where it would feel like that. I think for me, the tighter is that the word? Yeah, the tighter that I grasped onto the visuals and stopped listening made it a little bit better, because like you said, a lot of the dialogue is just these characters saying each other's names over and over. Like the names Jack and Lily get spoken out loud 60 times a piece by the various characters that are talking. Which kind of reeks of like a little. It's not that it's amateurish, but I mean, in a way, it kind of is. Like a character really doesn't need to just keep calling the first name out, unless it's a battle and you're trying to get somebody's attention, kind of thing. You use the name early a couple of times. That way, the audience knows what everybody's name is. We make that mistake a lot today. Looking at you, New Trek. But yeah, it seemed kind of weak.
What and like my nitpick was, the change in emotion. Another one was when Jack first sees Lily after she's put on the black dress and she's been with darkness. Yeah. And she's trying to play this whole I've been corrupted, and then the redemption arc quick.
Yep.
He sees her and he falls back. He's like, judge her with your heart, not your eyes.
Right.
Not even 5 minutes later, she's completely corrupted.
Yeah,
shoot her.
I'll do it. And he's like, oh. Dude, I'll say this because I had forgotten that scene just for a quick second. That might actually be the creepiest scene in the movie. She's watching the evil enchanted dress ghost phantom thing go through its ballet dance, and then like when it rolls around that final time and she's wearing it and the makeup's different, she's got like the darkened look going on with the black lipstick and everything. That was chilling, actually. That was very well done. I did like that part
well
there.
Done. Very good editing.
Yeah.
And the way they planned the shot really well.
I did kind of like that like that's right around the time the movie brought me back in from being overwhelmingly bored. I think in the middle is when Darkness and Lily start to have, because they have at least 2 or 3 back and forths. And it reminded me of a darker version of Beauty and the Beast, where Belle's kind of just resigned to her fate of kind of just staying in the Beast castle. She's coming down to dinner. They're having their exchange back and forth. It was kind of like that. Just obviously much darker given the subject matter and whatnot. But at least that was interesting. And I could have done with more of that and less of Jack being led around the wilderness, hoping to stumble into Darkness's prison, luckily, and the fairy showed up and Una showed him the way. It was clever, I thought, how they defeated Darkness. I'll give them points for that. I mean, it's tropey now, in terms of resolution, but in 85 for a fairy tale, a being's called Darkness. If you can blast him with some sunlight, you got a good shot. Yeah. You got a good shot of killing him. So I was with that. I don't know, anything else on Legend? I think it's like I said, it was a simple movie. I think we covered all the highs and lows, and Tim Curry's the high for me, guys. Darkness is it.
Well, I mean, our review lasted 1/3 of how long the movie lasted. So.
Right. Yeah. So I'm good. There's not really. It's just like I'm reminded of like when we recovered. I know what you did last summer. There's like, if it doesn't hold up, you can either nitpick everything or just kind of make your peace with it. So I'm not going to nitpick because I think it's just that general sense of nothing interesting happened in the middle. So okay, you just get down with the visuals and Darkness, and that's it. And the music, because the music's kind of dope. But that's it for me. Last words? We're good? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good. I would give it a 2.5 to 3. I mean, it's not a fantastic movie, but if you put yourself back in a past mindset and admire the hard work that went into creating it, you can look past some of the issues with it. But yeah, it's not a blockbuster. It's not a must see, but it's a fun see the first time if you've never seen
for sure.
it before.
For sure. I mean, if you're going to give it a 2.5 or a 3, I'd really only go 0.5 less than wherever you landed. Like if it's a 3 for you, I'd give it a 2.5. I think giving it less than that is completely disrespecting the technical merits that you were just speaking to, and that would be wrong. There's too much production value that goes in with it. The costuming alone for all the characters bumps this a solid, 1.5 over most of the other garbage fantasy movies that come out, historically, or even today when we look at crap like The Witcher or The Witcher Blood Origin more specifically. Like some of that stuff just looks awful. Like no effort went into it at all. And this wasn't that. This wasn't that. So if King Z is a 3, I'll go 2.5. I can't go any lower than 2. If you went 2.5, it wouldn't be fair. All right, I think that's going to do it for us, guys. That concludes our Salute to Fantasy Month. We had a blast covering these films. The playlist is still there for you guys to check out the various films we did. Recommend you go back and check out our Harry Potter coverage. For some reason, it didn't do as well as I thought it was going to do. Please take a look at that video. We had a good discussion on the Potterverse in general in there, actually. So until next time, King Z is going to be in the B seat. I'll be in the A seat, and we'll get back to you in a week. See ya.